Hello friends, today we are working on pseudo classes and making a navbar. So I've already got this navbar partially built. Home goes to home, class. Now this one doesn't work, right? And the reason for that is we need to get to the correct folder. So I've got my root folder has 3 folders in it: images, pseudo, and style sheet. Inside the pseudo folder, I have active, class, and hover. And then inside pseudo is a hyperlink folder with unvisited and visited. So the first thing we're going to want to do is make sure those all work. Okay, now a couple things that are built to help you. I've got most of it written. And then once we've got it in the nav bar, right, so I'm going to hit enter and make a nav start, and then hit enter, and then use the alt down trick. So now all my anchor tags are nested inside the nav. Now I'm on the index right now. First thing we want to do is, I don't want to go from index and reload my page. So we're going to, so right now if I click, you'll see it has to actually re-upload everything. But if I replace index.html with just a hashtag, now when I click, it doesn't reload my page, which is what we want. So we're going to need to go through these others, right? So class is in the pseudo folder. I'm going to need pseudo/class. Unvisited is also in the hyperlink folder. And then the text is link, because that's the pseudo class that we use for it, but we'll talk about that in a minute. Let's see, for visited, we need pseudo hyperlink. And then for hover, hover's not in the hyperlink. What's that last one? Active. Active is in the pseudo. So once you're inside the nav and have all the hyperlinks correct as far as the relative file path, it will all look correct. All right, so now if I go to my class page, let's delete that nav for a second. All right, so they're all here. Some are purple because I visited them, others are blue because I haven't. Yours might change on the coloring there just because I've been clicking around while I was preparing for this lesson. But the same idea, we're going to go through and fix all these. All right, so I've typed in my nav start tag again, and now when I refresh, right, so you'll see that quite a few of these aren't working. This one is actually also all sorts of skewed because this end tag needs the slash, so it is an end tag. All right, so now you'll see none of these are correct, right? They're all weirdly changed. So we want to go through and fix those, right? So use the file paths, use the hover trick, but practice // to leave a folder, folder / to go into a folder, don't go into shared folders, all of that. So now I have fixed all the relative file paths, and you'll see my links are all visible. And again, make sure that if you're on the class page, then your reference for the current page is just a hashtag, right? So I'll leave a note here. So I've added this comment just to help remind you how to get all of these working. For the unvisited page, in addition to fixing the hrefs, they also, if you validate, you'll see there's an error that says there's a stray end tag for the nav. Right, so if this is an extra or stray end tag for the nav, find the other one, get rid of it. The other thing you'll want to do is, see how we have a body and a nav on the same line? Hit enter, because we want, and then tab, right? We don't want two start tags on the same line like that. Okay, so I've now fixed all the relative file paths, and now it might be a little hard to see, so let me highlight here. All right, so now I've got all the links, they're all working, none of them are upside down or anything. Okay, so we're at unvisited, which is the link, and now we're going to go to visited. So validate, make sure you fixed any problems. Fix the relative file paths, and once you do that, it should look like this. And again, if you highlight, right, just in case you need to see them all. And this arrow here, that means I've just collapsed it, right? So if you click on one of these arrows, it'll just collapse a section. So now let's go on to, for the active, same thing, fix up your nav bar, fix the hyperlinks. So be a little careful, because like here I have the hashtag for all of my URLs, and so it looks fine, right? But these links, none of them are doing anything, right? So not only do they need to appear correct up in the nav bar, they also need to, well, be in the nav bar, and then they also need to actually take us to the page that we want. So now each of these pages has this same nav bar across the top. The styling that was already included is making it look the way it is. So now let's go back to the home page, and let's talk about a pseudo class. So let's go down first of all. Got to go to index. I'm going to exit out of the other pages. Okay, so make sure you have index up in the tab, and then it says index, and you've got this baby pirate ship looking deal. So I decided to go with pirates because pseudo means fake. And I want to talk about Jake and the Neverland pirates and how they are pseudo pirates. So pseudo means not real or fake. So let's fill in our gaps up at the top for our notes. So a pseudo class is a keyword added to a selector which allows you to style an element based on its current state or condition. Like when you hover, when you click, while you're clicking, if you've already clicked. Right, so pseudo classes can control the color of my elements after I've clicked them. See how while I'm clicking, class turns red? That's a pseudo class that we can style. Right, and then just for definition, pseudo means not genuine. So we're going to add the picture. So see where it says update file path? We want to update this source to include a picture, right? So I have a pirate's picture, several of them. So click through these, find the one you want, and then use the file paths to get that to load. When you do that, it should look like this. Right, so the whole reason I decided to make pirate ships on this lesson is because Jake is a pseudo pirate. He's not a real pirate. He thinks a good pirate never takes another person's property. Now, for this here, you can put Jake is a pseudo pirate because he's not a real pirate. If you want, you can do something else. Astrology is a pseudoscience because it's not a real science. Astronomy is a science, right? So fill those out, and then it should look something like this. Jake is a pseudo pirate. Astrology is a pseudoscience. Okay, so pseudo just means not genuine or fake. So now click on this link here or click on that link that says next page. Now this one is for classes. This is a review. We've already done class attributes before, but we just want to practice that again. So here's what we're going to do. Oh, I'm on index. Let me jump over to class. All right, actually, you know what? Let's do this. Let's go to our style sheet, and we've got the nav. Like, this is all code that I put in to make it work. Inside this nav space A, let's add background white. And what that'll do, it'll just make it a little easier to read the links that we've got in place. And you'll notice because I did nav space A, these other links did not. Right, so if instead of nav space A, I just do A, and then I take my background white and put it in there. Now all the hyperlinks have a background, right? So nav space A for just anchor tags in the nav, A on its own for all the anchor tags. So back to class. Right, so we've got, I updated this slightly, so yours should look like this already. Originally in my video it may have been a little different, but this is what it should be now. So if we have a dot seat, that will style any element that has class equal seat. So we have all these, it's like a little seating chart, right? So here's front row closest to me. This is the back row furthest from me. So you pick your seat. So let's say you're in seat 12. So you go down to seat 12, you're going to add class equals seat. And then up in your style, we're going to add dot seat, curly brackets, background red. So now 12 should be styled, or whatever one yours is, right? Unless you are on seat 12, I don't want to see 12 highlighted, okay? For the visited, right, make sure you've got visited and visited. And this is default, so when we style it, it's not going to change. And then this one, as we style it, it will change. Now, if you haven't clicked this link, we need you to click it so that you can see the difference between visited and non-visited. So go ahead and click that, and then you should have purple and then blue. And then for visited, it's this purple color that we're going to change. All right, so up in my style, I'm going to do A colon visited curly bracket, color colon Azure semicolon. Now when I refresh, now it's really hard to see because it's a very light color against a white background. Background, let's do a dark color for this, green. So now we can see the difference, but notice up here, all the nav stuff also got changed. So that's fine though, because we can just override it by doing nav space A for those ones. Now what's interesting though, is in my style, if I comment this out, control/, and refresh, you see how that green background stopped working? So it gets a little finicky if you don't have one set up already with just the plain A. So if we put that back and refresh, now it works. Okay, and then the other rule is when you're using multiples, the visited, which is the one we're looking at right now, that needs to be after the link, but before hover and active. So the order, sometimes if it's not working, you need to double check the order of things. So let's go back to visited. And by the way, if I go to a different page, these ones aren't affected because internal style sheets only affect that current actual page. So I'm going to leave this, and then when we're done, this should be fixed at the end. But this would stay green, and that would stay green. Well, this depends on if you've clicked it or not. Yours might not be, but if you click it and then go back, then it will be. Now go to, from visited, go to the next page, which will take you to the pseudo active. Now, right now we have two spans, one with background Dodger blue and one with the color orange, right? And usually we don't have two of the same thing. So the idea here is we want that second one to be the active. So by adding that active, Now the dark orange went away unless I click. While I'm clicking, that's when they change color. Okay, so that's what the active is. You're actively clicking on it. So then on to the next page. So now we are on to hover. And right now we have a span, and then we want to span hover. Right, so if we add :hover and refresh, the green part, that color C green, only happens on the element that I'm hovering on. Huzzah. Okay, so that's really nice just to kind of help you realize where it is, what thing you're clicking or hovering over about to click. So then, next page is going to take us to unvisited. With unvisited, oh, I have to reset this, hold up. With unvisited, it's actually just the word link. So right now I've got background of pink, color of green, it's styling a bunch of stuff. If I go in and add :link, now it is just styling the do not click. And again, if you haven't clicked on this one, you need to click it. If you do click on the do not click, then what you can do is go down to the styled and this do not click thing, just delete a couple pieces out of it. And that should put it back to the unvisited. But I mean, it won't work anymore because now if I click it, it's just broken. But we're okay if it's broken. We just want to see what it looks like. And this time, this one stayed blue because I deleted different pieces of it. So if I delete something from there, delete something from there, refresh. Now we've got the link, which is for the visited. And then this should already be updated for you. So this inherited style sheet, that's just a link to show you the CSS style sheet. For now, we want to style this nav bar. And there's a couple things I've got here. We've got the nav. This setup is why these they have a nice space between them. Actually, though, I'd like some gap at the beginning before home. So we're going to change text line left, which that's the default. If we didn't have that line at all, it would change nothing. But if we change left to center, then it just centers out those links along the top. Okay. After that, what we want to do is style just the nav bar. First thing we want is let's get this shape a little better. So the nav space A, we're going to add what's called padding. And for you to be able to see what's happening, I'm going to add a background color. We'll take this one, we'll move it up, and change this to blue. If I change the nav and add like a padding of, let's go 5 pixels. Oh, that's not an X. PX for pixel. Now the nav bar is larger, right, it has this little gap here. But if I take this padding and put it in the nav instead, nav space A, now there's actual gap around is bigger. And I don't like that color for my, well, let's do this. Let's change the color to white. And now it's visible again. I want to get rid of the underline. And so there's this text decoration underline. If you change that to none, then it gets rid of that line underneath.